Welcome to Fun with Fragments. Fragments are fascinating. They present peepholes to the past, hinting at lost treasures, but also working as nodes in a network through which we can link the Bodleian with Swabian monasteries, English auction houses, passionate collectors, and generations of scholars. Along their way, fragments encounter other fragments. Philine's fragment at one point was bound together with a letter accompanying the gift by the Pope of a cardinal's hat to Archbishop Thomas Woolsey. The hat is still kept at Christchurch. The status of fragments as tokens of a book make them pleasing intellectual puzzles to figure out the original context, but also ideal paleography projects of manageable proportion for a 2-week internship or a 1-week or 1-term course, provided you are as curious and skilled as Lucian and Philine. Over to you, Lucian.
Thank you. So, I mean, it's very generous of you. This was certainly a puzzle, actually, from the start. So, where it all began was this a fragment that's just behind it. And we didn't know a great deal, actually, to be honest, about it. So we know that it was originally bound in volumes, 2 volumes, that were held in Würzburg in the Jesuit College that we own today. And so together they arrived in 1641 in the Duke Humphrey's library. But I'd like to tell a slightly wider story really the life or the whole lives of this fragment and the text that we're dealing with. So it's really the puzzle that was solved was, what is this text? So this is Otto von Passau's 24 Elders, a text which is known for not being particularly interesting. It's quite, it is a handbook on catechism, Christian catechism. But it was enormously popular. There are 171, I think more than 171 witnesses of this. So what is remarkable about this is that even amongst those 171 witnesses, very, very few of them date within the same century of the composition date. So we know that the first version was produced in 1383 and a subsequent one in 1386 with an addition of an epilogue. And so through unlocking this puzzle, I was able to identify, based on the script, that this is a late 14th century thing. There are only about 5 other fragments that date from around that time. And even more unusual is the dialect. This is from the East Central German region, so around Dillingen. And there are only a handful that are from that area. This text originally was based in southwestern Germany, and it had an enormous reach as far north as the Netherlands, and equally had enormous reach in terms of time. It entered into the printing age relatively early, and actually we have an example here. In 1480 by Anton Sorg in Augsburg, he prints a copy of the text. And this continues right into, actually I'll point out here, there are some additional marginalia that someone has written in into their personal copy. And I think that is one of the most interesting aspects of the text. And probably the reason behind it is it's because the text isn't the most interesting. It opens itself up to the owner to edit and inscribe and annotate as you wish. And this example here, I think is a little bit later, and actually I forget where it's exactly printed, but I remember the one in front of it is from 1560 in Dillingen, and it is a part of a second wave of reception around the time of the Counter-Reformation. So it has this long stretch of life, and it gets, in a way, reappropriated in different circles, both lay in terms of large-scale workshops, print workshops. There are examples that are of this text that are produced by a very famous printer, workshop manager, die Bodleian Library, right up to to later. I think that's everything I have to say. So over to Philine.
Just while Philine is getting into position, you can have a look at the edition that Lucian did behind you, where he compared the text with two other witnesses, and also gives you an English translation of some actually quite interesting things about how to have table manners.
So, in my history of the book project, I examined 2 bifolia from this fragment of the Heiligen Leben, a Middle High German collection of saints' life. This was often used for table readings and contains sometimes a quite amusing anecdotes. To offer a brief glimpse from this fragment, here St. Nicholas causes a cheap substitute chalice to repeatedly fall from an altar to convince a praying father of God's power, and St. Ambrose hires a prostitute in order to dissuade people from electing him as a bishop. The fragment of the Heiligen Leben were originally the middle of the choir, preserving the end of St. Nicholas and the start of St. Ambrose's legend. Nicholas is one of the few saints where at least German and Dutch children can tell you when it is celebrated. On the 6th of December, when he puts small gifts in your shoes. Church Father Ambrose of Milan is mostly remembered on the 7th of December, the day when he was consecrated as a bishop, hence a direct neighbor of Nicholas in the saint's calendar. In the Heiligen Leben, however, Ambrose is normally placed at his death day on the 4th of April. He therefore forms the start of the summer part of the 2-volume arrangement of saints, as can be seen in this Oxford Manuscripts, which represents the earliest witness of the summer section, having been produced in the late 14th or early 15th century. So, the Oxford fragment the Oxford fragment, this one, is remarkable that it represents a small group of the Heiligen Leben manuscripts, which reordered the saints. The other fascinating feature is that it seems to have been recycled in an institution with a chained library, most likely a monastery. Andrew Honey alerted us to the telltale rust stains over here, coming from the metal chain of the host volume. That would fit the original purpose of the Heiligen Leben as table reading for Dominicans. Why this particular manuscript then fell out of fashion and was used as flyleaves for another volume, we do not know, but the biography did not end there. As the traces of adhesive visible at the top and bottom, it must have suggest that the fragment was remounted as part of a guard book of fragments, which must have arrived in Oxford before the 19th century, together with the miniatures in German at the end of this guard book, which are miniatures of Guido della Colonne's Latin Historia Destructionis Troia, also from the mid-15th century. Both fragments were part of a composite manuscript, which was dismantled in 1895 and divided into several parts according to language and topic, which also was part of the bishop's head manuscript, the English one. It is likely that the fragment was restored during its incorporation into the newly formed German-themed volume, as evidenced by the paper repairs, also at the top and bottom on some pages. In 1923, a Dutch fragment was removed, which you can see by the note in here, which refers to this manuscript, where the fragment is here in the first page. That is also a guard book of Dutch fragments. So we have 5 lives and uses of my fragments. Firstly, as a collection of saints' lives in the 15th century, possibly used for table readings. Then, as paystones in a chained volume in late medieval monastic library. After that, for upcycling as glued-in fascicles in a large collection of fragments being auctioned as a unit. After that, broken up as paleographic specimen in 1895 in the Bodleian, and after that, as rebound as a 2-fragment folder, which form was catalogued by Peter Kidd and now has been turned by me into a digital edition, and then again here, returned to its original purpose as a table reading.
Thank you very much for that wonderful insight into the lives of manuscripts and fragments. And I love the idea of you get a really boring book and so you just decide to make it better by scribbling in it. Everyone, please do have a closer look, but first of all, just another round of applause for us.